Tom Watson, you're welcome to Golf Weekly.
Hey, this is going to be fun.
Very happy to say European captain and, of course, three-time major winner Padraig Harrington joins us.
Today's special guest on Golf Weekly is Lee Westwood.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm honoured and delighted.
Let's bring in Paul McGinley, who joins us now. Paul, you're very welcome.
Shane Lowry, how are you keeping?
I'm good, thanks, yeah. Well, I'm as good as I can be.
The biggest names in golf and Ireland's best golf podcast, Golf Weekly, now exclusively available on Patreon. Go to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly to sign up now.
The Cheltenham Show on OTB Sports. Don't feel like a punter. Feel like a favourite this Cheltenham with Paddy Power.
Right, a very good morning to you. Welcome along to the first of our daily shows this week. It is the Cheltenham Show on OTB Sports with Paddy Power. Don't feel like a punter, feel like a favourite this Cheltenham. And one man who always feels like a favourite is our own Johnny Ward. Johnny, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Jerry. Yeah, one day to go. Very, very exciting times. Let's bring it on.
Yeah, Tom Malone's going to be with us every morning this week as well. Tom, how are you?
Hey, Jerry, you well?
Yeah, today is one of those days where it's like everybody can feel, I think, that level of excitement because none of their anti-post bets have been beaten, unless, of course, you backed Altior, in which case, you know, I hope you're getting your money back. We'll get into that news in a moment, but there is this kind of sense where today is the day where you get to, it feels like you have it, feels like you know things. As the week goes on, that feeling dissipates a little bit and you're like, oh, why didn't I see that 6 weeks ago?
Yeah, Jerry, it's just that everything is still a winner at this moment, isn't it? You've done whatever hard work and study, I suppose. If your anti-post bets is still alive by Monday mornings, it feels like half a winner already in the bag, doesn't it? But yeah, it's absolutely magical, ready to go, and 28 winners to be found between now and Friday evening. Johnny,
Altior, the news came through this morning, has been ruled out of Wednesday's Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase. Nicky Henderson reported that they scoped the 11-year-old after a cough this morning. He coughed after exercise, which caused it to scope him, and as a result of that, what we've seen, it would not be sensible to run him. This is devastating to all of us, and Pat and Christopher Pugh in particular, in that this is the second year running we've had to pull him out at the last minute.
Yeah, like Nicky Henderson's been under some criticism for, basically basing everything around Cheltenham, and this horse early in the season missed an engagement because of Cheltenham, and this kind of shows that if you have a horse, you should be running them in Grade 1 races because you don't know what will happen. And for the fact that this horse was a 6 or 7 to 1 chance, behind an odds-on favourite in Chacun Poursois, normally a 6 or 7 to 1 chance being rendered a defection close to Cheltenham isn't that big of a deal, but it is with Altior because he added so much spice to the race. So I guess between him, Time Hill and Honor Jameen over the last few days, it shows how fragile National Hunt horses are because 3 of them just basically on the eve of the festival are out. But I suppose I was kind of marvelling going into last week how few horses were out injured. So all in all, it hasn't been bad in that regard, but no doubt it is a blow because I was really looking forward to seeing him and Chacun Poursois if they were anyway near each other jumping the second last, because Chacun Poursois, there's still that doubt about him getting up the hill, whereas Altior gets up the hill probably better nearly than any other horse. So fortunately it wasn't to be.
Okay. Altior is one of those horses that has a very, very big reputation, Tom. Not being in Cheltenham last year and this year, does that mean that we're always going to have a little bit of a sense of what might have been?
There's definitely that, isn't there? I went out for a walk this morning, actually, before to kind of clear my head, and I said to Barbara on the way, we were like, well, I bet you Altior won't run after this. And it was just like, got back and I said it half joking, and then we get back to this news. So, I mean, Altior and his legacy, there's very little you can crab about in the first 3 quarters of his career, but certainly the last 2 years have been somewhat unsatisfactory. And Nicky Henderson seems to have taken him losing his unbeaten record something very personally. He got beaten by Suriname for the first time, and Suriname, of course, famously was higher rated than him, which didn't seem like that great a call at the time. But obviously, since then, it has looked maybe but they're both overrated. But he obviously got the better of it. Ascot. As Johnny said, not taking part in the Tingle Creek earlier on the season, saying, it'll take too much out of him ahead of Cheltenham. Then he was obviously beaten quite well by Dan Skelton's horse when last seen at Christmas. So, look, it's the Altior legacy. There's a question mark over it now, and it's just so disappointing. And again, as Johnny said, it's very difficult for punches to kind of go along with what's been told to us because we haven't actually been given a real reason. He just said he scoped and what we saw we're not happy with. So we don't know if he has a respiratory infection. We don't know if he has something that's more serious than that, or we don't know if he just has a bit of a snotty nose. So there are many aspects of it that are unsatisfactory, particularly, not just if you're an Altior fan, but if you're a National Hunt fan and you don't really want a series of 1 to 2 shots dominating these championship races.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that as well, Ger. Just there are kind of a lot of small fields. What Altior going into, when he was beaten by Surname in 2019, when the ground and the trip to me combined, he'd had 14 chases and won all 14. He's won 10 grade ones in his career. He has to go down as a phenomenally good racehorse, one of the best I've ever seen over jumps. And I suppose we do think of the good horses coming back, like Sprinter Sacre. He should come back. It's not a big problem. And maybe if I were Punchestown now, I'd be frantically trying to get Altior over to Punchestown, because I think that could be something that he'll target. So it could be a case of every cloud is a silver line as well for Irish racing fans.
What age do chasers start to turn?
Well, he's 11. There's probably an argument that it's not necessarily age, it's how many years you can get out of a horse. So just looking here, Altior's on the go since 2014 since he won his bumper. Now we're obviously, so this is his 8th season, and that's really good going. He's probably an anomaly in that regard. Francois Dumaine used to say you get 5 years out of a horse, whether you start him off at 3 or 6. The French would start their horses earlier. But I guess that's kind of, that way that Henderson has trained Altior and these good horses. He's won 25 times, which isn't exactly that difficult. So I wouldn't. There were doubts anyway as to how good he was, but I didn't think his run behind Ube Negra the last day was that bad. I thought he probably needed it a bit, and I was really excited to see him. But I certainly wouldn't be writing him off.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Johnny, I completely agree with that as well. And the thing is, when you get a horse who is that age, you just think they need a run, don't you? You just want to see them out and get a run. And that's the arguably more disappointing thing. And instead, you're dead right, though. Punchestown should 100% get the red carpet out for him.
Well, I'm sure that phone call is already being made. Let's talk a little bit about the weather overnight. 10 millimetres of rain overnight, and the going has changed. The official description is now soft. Good to soft in places for the start of the festival. This is actually properly huge news, Thom, because traditionally, over the best part of the last decade, the going has been good. That's what people expect the going to be at Cheltenham. What difference is this going to make?
I suppose, look, they'll generally get good to soft, and just I suppose in Ireland it'll be what we would call good to soft. They would call more like soft in Cheltenham. So it shouldn't be too much of an impact, but it's definitely something that the Irish horses won't have a problem with. Certainly Willie Mullen's horses won't have a problem with any sort of extra squeeze in the going whatsoever. He works on that famous deep gallop. His horses absolutely love a slog. So the ones that will be affected perhaps are the ones that have sort of been saved for this a little bit, trying to keep them away from that winter ground. So, proper spring horses won't be in love with this, but look, the weather is actually to be okay for the next couple of days. So hopefully not too much more rain falls. And look, Cheltenham drains well and it dries well, and there's so much ground. And of course, again, they only race on each track 2 days. So, it doesn't actually get that much traffic as well. So it shouldn't be too much of a concern, but certainly if you wanted a horse who was really, really decent ground, look, off the top of my head, a horse who's obviously looking for good ground this week is Tiger Roll. So there's maybe a fairy tale that just kind of won't happen, because he would just probably want it certainly quicker than soft. Yeah.
Any other horses immediately impacted by this that you can think of, Johnny?
Oh, Abacadabras, and to a lesser extent Ballyadam, obviously both started off the season with Gordon Elliott. Ballyadam is now with Henry de Bromhead, and Abacadabras is now in the care of Sneezy Foster, though he hasn't actually left his stable. But I wouldn't get too worked up about it. I know the rain was unexpected overnight, but it'll still be pretty much good to soft ground. And I wouldn't, and even in terms of Tiger Roll has kind of made a fool of me before on ground that was softer than ideal. I think the cross-country track would probably still be okay for him. It's probably more of a question mark of just how much ability he retains. But all the chat this week in terms of Abacadabras from connections is just how fast he is, and how much he does rely on probably a quick pace, but mainly quick ground. But I wouldn't be getting too worried about it. It'll still be somewhere like good to soft, which is what you expect. I've been to Cheltenham in recent years where it's been borderline heavy on day one, and it won't be anything like that.
Okay, I haven't seen the forecast for the rest of the week. It's likely to dry out and be kind of good for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I don't know what your latest is, Tom. I think there's nothing major in terms of weather. I don't think there's an awful lot of rain.
Okay. Well, look, we're 3 Irish lads talking about the weather. What could be more stereotypical / predictable? Like 28 races to get stuck into, and we were going to spend 5 minutes talking about the weather. Fair enough. Rich Ritchie, let's talk about Royal Pigalle here. Pagai.
Yeah.
Pagai.
Look, Royal Pagai, I think, is how we're going to chance it. Look, Rich Ritchie is another one of those connections who wouldn't be renowned for taking chances with his horses. Willie Mullins would be a master of ensuring that horses run in races that they're the best chance of winning. So Royal Pagai obviously now is in the care of Venetia Williams, incredibly impressive winner when last seen was Warwick or Weatherby. Sorry, it's just slipped my mind there, but he was warm water favorite. Sorry, Haydock, in that Peter Marsh, and he was a pretty warm water favourite for the National Hunt Chase with an engagement in the Gold Cup as well. So they've decided to run him in the Gold Cup. So that's a pretty big decision. Whereas, the 4 mile or the 3 mile sixer, as it's known, is generally the weakest of the 4 novice chases. So to go and make that decision, which he has a chance in on ratings as well, having won the Peter Marsh so well. But it's a pretty exciting move by Rich Ritchie and Connections to actually go and run a novice in the Gold Cup just because he's in form, he jumps well. And again, it's that thing you want. You just want Connections to go and be brave and realise there's only one Gold Cup, there's only one chance. And they have done that, and they've made the big decision. And that's and so much talk about races cutting up and, small fields in these championship races, but it's really good to see the contenders for the big one, the Gold Cup, lining up, and Royal Pagai just adds another layer of intrigue to it.
Yeah,
the mad thing about him, lads, sorry, briefly, Jared, the mad thing about him is, and this would definitely be a first, I imagine, a Gold Cup. 8 is the magic number here. He's 8-1, but his first 8 chases, he lost every single one of them. Can you imagine a horse who's 8-1 in the Gold Cup? He's a novice, and he lost his first 8 races over fences. It's a real fairy tale story, and I'm with Thom. I'm like, if you have the horse, go with it. Rich Ritchie wants to win a Gold Cup as well, and if you have an 8-1 shot for a Gold Cup, or a shorter price to win a race that, people will forget about, it's an obvious choice for me.
All right. Boris Johnson is on your list of things to talk about here. Thom, what's the crack with this?
Yeah, Boris Johnson intervened in one particular school child's letter about schools reopening. Obviously, the schools in the UK are already open, but one young lady who's actually Tom Scudamore's daughter, and she wanted to, so she wrote a letter to Boris Johnson to ask him if they could extend lockdown for another couple of weeks, just so she was able to. But in the letter, she did say that, look, my dad is 39 now, so he's not going to have many more chances at Cheltenham. So Boris Johnson did actually ring the school and got the teacher to give them permission so that they can go and watch the races involving Tom Scudamore on TV in the school.
Not that he's not busy or anything,
Exactly. Well, what else does he have to do?
Nothing else to be doing there.
I think he's trying to reclaim the narrative from Cheltenham of 12 months ago, because Boris was in the news the whole week last week, and I think he wants to be in the news for better reasons 12 months on, to be fair.
Okay, your trifecta of actual winners is we're going to have a daily trifecta from Thom. Is there one at the start of the week that you won't be able to do on a daily basis? What are your naps for us, Thom?
Yeah, we'll just have a look ahead to the. I'll just pick 3 across the week. So Paisley Park in the Stairs, I genuinely can't believe the price he is. He's 15-8, so he is number 1. Number 2 is Brave Man's Game in the Ballymore Property Novices Hurdle. I'm going to take on Jamie Codd and his God-given certainty that is Bob Ollinger. And then the other horse I'm going to put up is in the Triumph Hurdle, Tritonic, who is a really, really impressive winner of the Adonis, which is a trial I absolutely love for the Triumph Hurdle. So it's Paisley Park, Brave Man's Game and Tritonic, the 3 hopeful winners for the week.
What's Brave Man's Game kind of odds at the moment?
Brave Man's Game is around 3-1. Tritonic is around about 9-4. And Paisley Park's about 15-8.
All right, so that'll be a big enough old price for the trifecta.
Yeah, well, there's enough short prices to stick in plenty of trebles, so just trying to find something a little bit different. I have come up with a different trifecta as well, and these are things I just want to see happen over the course of the week. I'm not going to bet them, but if they happen, they'll be absolutely magical. And they're just, good things happening to good people. That's what you want at Cheltenham, right?
Yes. What have you got for us?
So firstly, well, all the 3 of us obviously are just going to have loads of winners, first and foremost. No, good things happen to good people. Goshen, in the Champion Hurdle, last year, an accident like no other, a fall like no one has ever seen, where the horse is about to blitz up and put in one of the greatest juvenile performances ever seen at Cheltenham, and somehow his hooves got caught and he stumbled at the last. Obviously, he felt the effects of that. And I think the Moore family, you know, they're a small, tight-knit crew. They don't have many horses. They don't have many big-name horses. So for Goshen to come back like he did when last seen, and then go and do something in a champion hurdle, that would be special. So leg one in our good things to good people trifecta would be Goshen. The second part would be Paddy Brennan, who hasn't had a winner as a rider at Cheltenham for a decade. I think his famous, he came down off Native River when he was absolutely certain he thought he was going to win. If you read back, there's an interview with Donald McRae, and it's heartbreaking, the sort of trials and tribulations he went through in the immediate aftermath of that race. And of course, he's had a brilliant season this year as well. I think he's on 90 winners already for the season. So he's had a brilliant year. So another one for the senior ranks in the weigh room as well, Paddy Brennan. So I'd really like to see him have a winner. And the third leg of my good things happen to good people trifecta would be Native River to win the Gold Cup. Colin Tizard is as good an egg as you're ever likely to come across in horse racing. He's a West Country farmer. He is so straight. He is just good crack. And Native River bounced back last time out. Obviously, he's a Gold Cup winner already. If he could go and do a quarter star and regain that Gold Cup when Colin Tizard, of course, just about to hand over his licence to his son Joe, who also wrote Q Card actually. But that would be a pretty magical way to sign off in your Cheltenham career, with Native River regaining the Gold Cup for veteran trainer Colin Tizard.
Bit of context there very briefly as well. You know, the Colin would have lost his daughter to cancer. I'm just looking it up here to affirm that it was last May. So it's been a very, very difficult year for them. And she was apparently such a huge cog of that operation, Kim. And essentially, they haven't had a great season. Numbers have been down, and some people would say it's because she hasn't been around. But obviously, Thom mentioned the changing of the guard there. But you can be 100% certain there will be tears shed by the Tizards if they have a winner this week. So bear that in mind. I find that the victories that kind of mean most are when it has significance beyond having a bet on it. And I think any Tizard victory this season is a victory for kind of humanity, really. Yeah, no, 100%. And we're all about those stories this week, and we'll be digging into them on a day-by-day basis on the show. Thom, good stuff for today. Thanks very much. We're going to let you go. Thom's going to join us every day for 15 minutes. He'll give us a daily trifecta. And we'll be obviously keeping a close eye on his dream trifecta as well. If you want to get in touch with us, by the way, you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. We'll be putting all of our daily tips up on otbsports.com and on the OTB Sports app as well. So just a reminder to stay tuned to that. And you can always WhatsApp us 0879 180 180. John Duggan's going to join us for his preview of the week next. Before that, though, let's hear from our special Cheltenham preview panel last Saturday, when John was joined by Paddy Power and racing royalty Barry Garrity and Katie Walsh. Here's the gang giving their own naps of the week.
What is your nap of the week, your horse to follow for the week, and your each-way selection? I'm going to put you on the spot, Katie Walsh. Your nap and your each-way.
My nap is Monkfish, and my each-way is Fakadari. I didn't think he was knocked about the last day behind Shack and Persois and Notebook, and he's operated around there before, and I can't see him out the first three. And that's in the Ryanair Chase on the Thursday, Katie Walsh. Barry Garrity, the nap and the each-way?
The nap is Shack and Persois, and the each-way is 3 under through 5.
Very good, and that's what we all hope to have in the golf course when they allow golf to be played again. And Paddy Power, the nap in the each way?
I'm a bit worried about my nap now, because Barry rides it in all its work and didn't tip it in the race. The Try and Fertile Zana here is my nap of the week, and my each way is Put the Kettle On, the Champion Chase.
Very good. Well, you've been so generous to give us your time today, Paddy Power, Barry Garrity and Katie Walsh. Stay safe, enjoy the week, and hopefully we'll speak soon.
All right, John Duggan is with us himself to give us some of his own flavour. This is the first Cheltenham you've missed, I think, since 2002, is it?
That's right, Ger. Yeah, good morning. It's a strange situation not to be going over to Cheltenham. None of the Irish media are going, Ger. And I remember when I first went in 2002, I was so intimidated by what it was. I've been watching the festival since I was 7 years of age and being reared on Dawn Run and Isterbrack and all these stories. And you really felt as an Irish person there that you were the underdog and you were hoping to get a few winners. And we got 5 winners that year. But the whole thing has changed. And we had, 17 winners last year. But I do hope to return. And I don't want it to be the last day that I'll ever broadcast at Cheltenham to be the 13th of March 2020, because it was a very confusing time for a lot of people. It was an unsettling time. I don't think hindsight's a great thing. And when we're living through the first pandemic in 100 years, everybody's an expert in hindsight. And I think Cheltenham shouldn't have gone ahead, But when you're there and when you're working, sometimes you can be in a bubble about it. The atmosphere changed completely over the 4 days. You can feel it in the air. And by the Friday, everybody just wanted to get out of there. But obviously, we were all allowed to go. And the pubs are still open until that weekend.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's obviously going to be much safer. The bubbles have been established, the Irish in their bubble. We'll see how that all works, and fingers crossed everything goes off seamlessly. Johnny, one of the things that we've been talking about in Friday Night Racing is just the difference in build-up. We don't know how the Irish horses are getting on versus the English horses, really, because we haven't seen them pitted against each other. Have you any sense or any expectation about whether or not this might be a year where something strange happens, where the balance of power is one way, or is it just going to essentially be the same as it always is?
Well, I suppose to say the same as it always is. There has been a major shift in recent years where, let's be clear about this. Britain should be winning the Presbyterian Cup. I mean, the horse population in Britain, the amount of racetracks, the amount of race meetings they have versus a much, much smaller country in Ireland. If you go back to the days of Galmoy, who was basically carrying the flag for Ireland, we might have one winner in Cheltenham or none at all. Now, we have 28 races now, but, one bookmaker has put up a handicap. So bear that in mind. A bookmaker is not betting now on, it's kind of like a rugby game between two mismatched teams, and you have a handicap of say 20 to make it interesting. We have a handicap, I think, of 6.5. So the expectation is that Ireland will win the Presbyterian Cup by 6 or 7. And to be honest, I haven't put the analysis into this where there can often be a good bet where you really crunch the numbers in terms of the odds and come up with the probability of something happening over the course of a lot of races based on the odds per race. But I'd imagine Ireland will dominate this year. Again, as you say, there are very few races between Irish and British horses. There's barely been a British horse in Ireland this year. And obviously with not only Brexit, but with the pandemic, there's been kind of a reluctance to send horses over to Britain even when you can. And it's kind of events as well that Cheltenham numbers in terms of field sizes will be down this year, where the traction of being an owner at Cheltenham with for example, a horse at 20 to 1 or that isn't quite what it was. There's no doubt about that. But, there's a possibility this week that Ireland will, replicate something like the 1909 of a couple of years ago, and whenever that was, and absolutely batter the British, which I could definitely see happening. And it might, ask more questions about British racing in general, which in my view is in a perilous state at the moment, with prize money, with serious owners leaving or potentially leaving, or in the case of Sheikh Mohammed, for example, pretty much disgraced in Britain. It's very expensive to have a horse in Britain, and the rewards aren't there in terms of prize money. So if Ireland has a very good week, which I think it will probably lead to some soul searching over there. And I don't want that to happen. I think we absolutely need a strong British racing product in this country as well, because the two are intertwined. But Brexit has been a problem. It's expensive having horses running this week as well relative to other years.
Yeah, okay. John, what are you looking forward to most? What are the big storylines you think we're going to be talking about all week?
There's three for me, Ger and Johnny. First of all, it's Rachel Blackmore. To win the champion hurdle on Honeysuckle tomorrow or the Gold Cup on a Plutarch on Friday would be amazing. She deserves her position in the sport. She's 31 years of age now. It's taken her a while, the Tipperary jockey, to get to the top. She had a lot of hard years when she had to just stick it out, but she got a chance with Henry de Bromhead a few years ago, and she started riding the Michael O'Leary, Eddie O'Leary horses, and she's proven herself. She's quiet in the saddle. She's a positive rider. And she gets the best out of her horses. Honeysuckle, she was brilliant on in the Mares Hurdle last year. A female jockey's never won the Champion Hurdle or Gold Cup. That would be an amazing story for not just racing, but for sport. And I think it's a story the sport needs at the moment. The second thing is Album Photo looking to win a hat-trick of Gold Cups. This has hardly been talked about. Only Golden Miller, Cottage Rake, Arkle and Bestmate have won 3 Gold Cups. And Album Photo, who's not a really flashy horse, is looking to do that on Friday for Willie Mullins and Paul Townend. The other story is Johnny touched upon there. I was going through all 28 races. 22 of the 28 races with Paddy Power have Irish favourites. I think when I walked around in 2017 when we won 19 races, it felt like Punchestown. And British racing does have issues. Their lack of prize money, the lack of ownership power that are investing in national hunt horses. And I really, when I see Monkfish and Envoy Allen and Chacun Persois, we have Honeysuckle, favourite for the Champion Hurdle, Chacun Persois, favourite for the Champion Chase, Album Photo, favourite for the Gold Cup. We really have the horses that have been trained by Gordon Elliott, Henry de Bromhead's horses and Willie Mullins' horses, really like when we did that preview panel on Saturday, the only English horse they mentioned was Alan King's Tritonic in the Triumph Hurdle, Barry Geraghty and Katie Walsh and Paddy Power. And that's not just green tinted glasses. This is the reality of it. The Presbyterian Cup or the Ryder Cup that they brought into Cheltenham has really been dominated by Ireland. I think 2013 was the first time we won it. And there was one draw, but since then it's been an Irish domination. It is very, very strange. And I can see nothing else with that happening again this week.
And just say, for example, Jared, the racing at Stratford today is like, it's a really traditional precursor to Cheltenham, and often you'd have like this Irish banker running at Stratford, and it's good standard of racing over in Stratford. But just say, for example, today they have a 0 to 130 handicap hurdle. That's a decent standard of hurdle race, and the winning prize is less than $6,000, right? So you have a good hurdler, and you're going for a prize in a pretty big race meeting on the eve of Cheltenham, and the winning prize is $6,000. So even if you win that $6,000, you straight away lose 20 to 25%, and then you have all the other costs involved. And after your monthly bill, even after winning a race worth $6,000, you actually don't have that much left, and that's if you win the race. So it's just an example of the problems over there and why it isn't attractive to have a horse over there compared to over here, where our prize money is much better.
Okay. Well, look, that's obviously something we can come back to as we see how it emerges. The one thing I would ask, though, is, John, would we not prefer to have seen a bit more in terms of the form line of the Irish horses against the English horses? It's possible that this year the English horses have been performing at a very high level. It's possible the Irish have been performing. We just don't know. I'd like to have seen a few races where their best ones went up against our ones, and we had an indicator at least of where they were respective to each other.
Yes, but like I'd look at, I just don't see many contenders. So let's go through them. So what tomorrow is, we got the Champion Hurdle tomorrow. What is 3:05? We've got Honeysuckle is the favourite. Epatante, that is an English trained horse, Nicky Henderson. So that horse ran at the Christmas Hurdle at Kempton, disappointed. What is last year's winner? So that's an English horse with a chance, English trained horse, Nicky Henderson. Goshen is a 5-year-old in the Champion Hurdle. Only 2 5-year-olds has won since 1985. But you can say it's a competitive race. Altior has now been taken out of the champion chase, so that's a disappointment. And that should leave Chacun Pour Soi with a huge chance of winning it. And Put the Kettle On won the Arkle chase last year, is an Irish trained horse. The English have got the favourite for the big race on Thursday, which is the Stayers Hurdle with Paisley Park. And they've got Champ in the Gold Cup. So you could definitely see English horses like Native River and Might Bite were 2 English trained horses battling it out in the Gold Cup only a couple of years ago. But on the general run of things, the bumper, the novice hurdles, the novice chases, like when I'm thinking about the Gold Cup of the future, Jer, I'm thinking of only 2 horses I can see in the picture are Monkfish and Envoi Adam, both Irish trained. So we're hoovering up all of the other races, not just the championship races. So you could see English winners of the championship races. You could see there was still 10 English winners last year. Add a few more to that, that's 13, 14. But it's a case that historically we would go to Cheltenham and we'd be lucky to get a handful of winners. Now we're having the majority of them. We have 22 favourites out of 28.
Okay. John mentioned Alboom Photo there and the potential for a hat-trick here, Johnny. Is Alboom Photo as good as those other horses that John has listed off there? Like, we're talking about some of the most storied names in National Hunt history, and Alboom Photo stands on the verge of that, and it's kind of been a low-key enough build-up to that.
He's very low-key for a horse that is going for 3 Gold Cups. I think, a little bit has been talked about this. It's probably the fact that as a novice, he was far from outstanding. He, things went a little bit against him. Obviously, at Punchestown, that mad race at the time, but he was well beaten by Presenting Percy, who initially was my bet for the Gold Cup this year, which won't run. But as a novice, he was well beaten by Presenting Percy. When he arrived in his first Gold Cup, I think he was sent off like 15-2 or something like that. So he was a little bit unheralded. Even last year, he wasn't a short price. And Willie Mullins, I think the story goes that Willie Mullins was in the Lord Bagnall one evening with journalists, and he mentioned to them, I think it was the British journalist, he said, I've won X amount of Irish Gold Cups, I've won X amount of Punchestown Gold Cups, I've won X amount of Leopardstown Gold Cups, and I've never won the Gold Cup. And then he sort of realised to himself, actually, maybe I've told myself why in that very sentence, because you don't win Gold Cups all year round. You win the Cheltenham Gold Cup and you have to maybe sacrifice the rest of the campaign. And as such, Alboom Photo, basically, he runs in Tramore, which with all due respect to Tramore is one of the lower grade tracks in Ireland. But Alboom Photo loves it, and it's been fantastic for Tramore. He goes to Tramore and then he wins the Cheltenham. And to think, when I got into racing, Jerry, it was all about best mate this, best mate that. So much hype about him going for the 3rd Gold Cup. Compared to this, is like, it's completely different. And given the fact that Willie Mullins trains him, and his owner Joe Donnelly, a real character who was I think was quite ill actually 2 years ago when Album Photo won, and has come back to full health. Has had a really, really storied life in terms of bookmaking and artwork. It's strange that it is such a low-key story, Album Photo.
Yeah, but John Duggan, we are on the precipice of history here. Are you leaning towards the 3 in a row at this stage?
Well, he owes me nothing because I had him the first year on the show here. We had Album Photo when he won the Gold Cup unexpectedly the first year. And the reason, he's not a flashy horse. And sometimes he's a habit of hitting a fence. And he fell in the novice chase under Ruby Walsh. Ruby Walsh broke his leg behind Presenting Percy, as Johnny was saying there. And then last year, I think the whole of Gold Cup Day was overshadowed anyway by the pandemic. Album Photo is a horse with a lot of tactical speed. So when Paul Townend at the top of the hill says go on him, he has the ability to put up a distance between his rivals. And he's also very, very tough and gutsy. It's hard to pass him up that hill. We've seen twice he's gone up that hill and twice he's prevailed. It looked like he was going to be beaten by L'Ostracization or even Santini last year, but he prevailed. I just don't know. When I'm thinking about Best Mate won the second Gold Cup very, very impressively, the first as well. And Album Photo just does enough. And I'm just wondering, is there something behind him, one of last season's novices, that could maybe have a little bit more class than Album Photo? And I like a Plutar in the Gold Cup. I don't think I'm going to change my mind between now and Friday. The best race I saw this year, guys, was Leopardstown at Christmas, the Savills Chase. Absolutely amazing race. Malone going out in front, Manila Indo falling, Kenboy, who's back into form, running well, but Kenboy does not have a good record at Cheltenham. And then a Plutar, who has beaten Chacun Poursuis over 2 miles, came with a wet sail with Darrow Keefe and won. Rachel Blackmore has decided to ride him over Manila Indo on Friday. And I think a Plutar is something that is a horse that I think has got festival form, is a horse that could put it up to Album Photo. You can't also rule out last year's novice winner Champ, who won well over 2 miles last time in the colours of JP McManus. But if I'm going to take on Album Photo, it will be with a Plutar. All
right, John, good stuff. Thanks very much for that. John Duggan's going to be with us every day, and his tips will be exclusively available on otbsports.com and on the OTB Sports app. You're watching the Cheltenham Show on OTB Sports with Paddy Power. Don't feel like a punter, feel like a favourite this Cheltenham. Paddy Power himself is going to be along with us next, as will racing broadcaster Gina Bryce, to preview the week. First, though, here's more from Saturday's special Cheltenham preview panel, and Katie Walsh trying to pick out her favourite Cheltenham memory.
Katie, the best race you ever rode in or witnessed at Cheltenham?
Oh, best race ever. I was lucky enough to ride in a lot of races at Cheltenham, to be fair. I suppose the best race, I don't really know how to answer that. I suppose for me, my first winner at Cheltenham, Pokes of all, winning the 4 mile was... you
beat me in it as well.
Well, regardless, I mean, it was a great day. It was something I thought would never happen. So many lads in the weigh room in Ireland and England don't get an opportunity to ride at the festival. So to have a festival winner was really special, and that was probably definitely my best day within racing. The best race I've ever seen. I've been lucky to be going to Cheltenham since 1997. Actually, this is the first year that I would have missed it. So I've seen loads of good races over the years, and probably be always following the Irish horses and the Irish jockeys, and with so much enjoyment with Ruby over the years as well, watching him with Cato Stars and all different types of horses. So John, I'm no good to you. Too many good.
That's a good answer. No, I remember that Poker de Civil because I couldn't see that finish was a great finish in that 4 miler. Like a long race, Katie. Like, did you feel you always had a chance in that race? Because it is a long way to go. It's like a Grand National distance.
Yeah, it was actually a lovely race to ride in, to be honest. Just one of those races where it all went right, and I got a good run everywhere. He wasn't really a strong traveller, but he loads of ability, and he was a second season novice as well. So he was a super jumper. He was absolutely awesome, and probably got there a little bit too soon, but we held on anyway, and it's lovely when it all goes right, John.
That's Katie Walsh speaking at the weekend to John on the Saturday panel. You can subscribe to the Saturday panel podcast on the OTB Sports app. Now, I am delighted to say Gina and Paddy are with us. Good morning to you both. How are you doing?
Not too bad, Jerry. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. This is the bit where we were saying earlier on, everybody still feels like they have some winners. Gina, news coming through this morning, though, about Altior. How big a blow is that?
Yeah, huge blow. Obviously, we want to see these big matchups at the festival, and this was very much one of those races where we were looking to see what Chacun Poursuis could bring to the party, of course, at a track he'd not run at, but you need something to go up against him, and Altior, as a 4-time festival winner, was the obvious one to put it up to him. Real shame he's been taken out. You always get this situation unfolding, but it just feels like we've had an unlucky couple of days. We lost Energumene. He was going to go up against Shishkin in the Arkle as one of the races of the entire week. Annie Mack would be so popular in Paddy Power's new race on the Friday, also out. So yeah, we've got those last minute defections and a real blow to see big ones like that not make the lineup.
That is the thing, isn't it, Paddy? These are big horses that are like potential winners that are coming out of races which already had fairly high profile short price favourites in them too.
Yeah, 100%. But there's 28 races. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to happen at some stage. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the game. But there's a load of other things happening as well. Like the ground is softer than expected. So every year, I'm telling you, you'll forget, and next year I'll be surprised again. But it happens every bloody year that it does. Cheltenham throws things at you, and you go, "Oh, sugar!" You have to scratch your head and restart again about what you're planning for the week and the bets you're planning to have and what that kind of stuff, because the ground changes or a favourite comes out, like you said, or something like that. So yeah, it's part of the narrative. Like it's the ups and downs of racing. With
a week like Cheltenham, Paddy, when does the sharp money start to come? Was there sharp money months and months ago for horses? And is there particular periods of the day before a race where you're thinking, ooh, that's an interesting market move? Yeah, I mean, like people do get focused a lot on the anti-post moves and stuff like that. And of course, knowing running plans can be a help. But the fact that it's non-runner money back for quite a long time, that doesn't make a huge amount of difference. And actually, the anti-post really, in the grand scheme of things, is only a tiny percentage of what's going to be bet on the race it's on the day of the race is when all the action really happens. So I think the morning, kind of mid-morning, is when you see some really interesting moves, because there's obviously, like, the bookies do different special offers and stuff like that, and so people take advantage of that. But then you do see significant things when we see, like, after the first race or even the first two races tomorrow, see just how soft the ground is. You'll probably, based on the times, like the stats nerds will be like, have their stopwatches out to see what the times are like in the races, and then you'll probably see some significant moves in the later races as well after that, because that's the big talking point at the moment is kind of the ground being softer than expected. Is that racing's equivalent of XG? Probably, yeah, something like that. It's like, yeah, I'm a terrible one for that. I always talk about, the times, but I've never actually looked at the time myself at all, and certainly don't bring a stopwatch.
Well, it's a good point though, because like I was thinking of this at the weekend, watching the racing and kind of comparing it to football. There are a lot of races, Paddy, where the best horse didn't win because he was basically ridden too hard. He was ridden, too wide, or the jockey went there too soon, and so forth. And that's like we're nowhere near the tip of the iceberg in terms of where we can go with this, because that's what I would try to sell to people who are not maybe into racing. There's so much going on. I think Gina and Paddy will maybe have different angles of looking at a race. To me, Ger will look at it differently, but there's so much going on. It's not just a horse running against another horse. There's the input of the jockeys, there's the input of the ground, there's the input of going there too early. And it's the same as watching, I guess a 2,000 metre race where the winner was held up and the guy who came second just went there too soon. And it's a fascinating puzzle trying to solve this.
And also, you're not even accounting for the fact that they are living, breathing animals with minds of their own, and it's not always easy to try and get them to do what you're expecting them to do. So there's always that factor as well, which is what makes it so exciting and what makes it so difficult, and what means that most of us end up giving all our money to Paddy, which is never good.
We're going to try and get some.
If it was easy, Gina, there'd be no such thing as bookies,
True.
Gina, what's the perception of the quality of horses coming over from Ireland this year? We've been talking about it a bit on the show already. There's a sense that Ireland are going to dominate, and we've got more favourites in most of the races, which would suggest that ultimately we're going to end up winning the Presbyterian Cup. But I just think that there's not enough information at the moment about how well the horses coming from Ireland are running versus the horses in England, because they haven't really gone up against each other the way that we would traditionally have seen them up against each other by now.
Yeah, it's a really good point. We've seen some real standout performances from the Irish contenders, and there's been a lot of hype and a lot of momentum behind them as better than the British trained contenders. Now, I'm not so sure it's going to be such a greenwash, if you like, this week. We've seen lower numbers of Irish runners coming over, with obviously the extenuating circumstances this year with COVID and the admin involved in getting horses over. A lot of the handicap fields are down. We've got smaller field sizes. A lot of those runners that maybe would have come over so that owners could have a day out have been taken out. So we've got less numbers numerically, but as you say, we've had those really good performances, particularly at the Dublin Racing Festival, which is obviously in the last 3 years since its inception become like the real trial meeting for this. And we saw some real stunning standout performances both there and at Leopardstown at Christmas that's led people to believe that, you know, Ireland's where we need to look. But as you say, it can all change. We don't know how these horses stack up to the British trained runners, and I think it might just be a little bit trickier than people are necessarily expecting. Hopefully, anyway.
Yeah, am I wrong about that, Paddy? Just that, like, you'd like to see a few more indications and markers, one versus the other.
Yeah, I just hope that Ireland don't win 28-0, because that would be very depressing. No, I'm joking. You're right. And then you go to the Cheltenham preview night circuit. I know it was a very weird one this year because it was all virtual on Zoom. But I think partly for that reason, there was very few English horses tipped up in the circuit over here, and that's always the way. You get your green tinted glasses on, you're completely blinkered. And Gina's right. I mean, you got to open up a little bit and consider that there is a chance we'd have a good few English winners in there. Now, the Irish novices do look particularly strong. Obviously, got Shishkin for England, but the Irish novices generally do look particularly strong. And I think we've got a couple of superstars like Envoy Allen and Monkfish, the two that spring to mind really. And you're kind of thinking, okay, they probably are a bit special, and so they're going to. So a lot of the big races basically have short-priced Irish favourites, but I think there will be plenty of English winners sprinkled in as well.
Anything in particular from the English stock of horses, Gina, that you think that Irish punters watching this show in particular should be keeping an eye out for?
Yes, I really like Tritonic in the Triumph. Now, this is a race that I think many of the Irish can't see them being beaten in, because they've got a horse called Zanahiyr in there, who has been really impressive. Take nothing away from his achievements in Ireland. He's done it both ways. You're mentioning that change of pace and how that can alter their performances. Well, he's done it off a slow pace and he's done it off a fast pace. So look, he looks very good. But the horse here, Tritonic, is trained by Alan King, who's got a good record with juveniles. Now, this is a horse, you often see kind of national hunt bred horses, or horses coming from the point-to-point field that go jumping. Well, this horse has come off the flat. So in recent years, those flat horses haven't necessarily had the best record in this, but that's because quite often they disappear off to finish their racing careers in Australia. But this one's been kept for the jumps here by Alan King. He's the top rated flat horse in the field. So he's got that speed and ability that we know already. He's transferred that really well to hurdles. First time up, he badly needed his first outing when looking good, but still room to be worked on first time up at Ascot. Now, he subsequently blew away the opposition at Kempton last time when getting on a bit of better ground. And the way he's quickened up off the back of the last hurdle, to me, stood him out as a really special horse. I think he can probably have any amount of improvement in hand as well. And I think he's going to put it up to the big Irish banker on the Friday in the Triumph hurdle. So Zanahiyr. And with the ground turning in the last 24 hours, a lot of people appreciate it in the very first race of the entire meeting as a big Irish banker for Willie Mullins. But Metier has put in a really good performance last time in the Tolworth, and that came on bad ground. He's got a very soft ground action, and actually I'm getting more and more confident that he might be able to lower the colours of the Irish trained runner in the very first race, the Supreme, as well. So fingers crossed, there's a couple in there that can put it up to you guys.
Yeah, how important is that change in ground? Because for some horses it's going to be devastating. For other horses, it's going to suddenly bring them into contention.
Yeah, big time. Metier, I mean, Harry Fry, his trainer, was saying, you know, they've had an away day to a race course to have a gallop with this horse. They're confident that he could handle the better ground, but he's got what you call a soft ground action. So he sort of really rounds and really eats through the ground. So it's obviously going to suit a horse like him. The problem we've got is we've had such a wet time of it, both in Ireland and here, that often we don't know what horses are going to improve on the better surface. We're kind of relying on trainers to tell us that their horses might look better on better surface or look back previous seasons. That's obviously harder with novices, but I'm just trying to think of a horse. You know, you've got a horse like Joseph O'Brien's got a well-fancied one called Embittered in one of the big handicaps on day 2, the Grand Annual. Now, the drier the ground, the better for that horse. And I do really fancy his chances. But again, you've got that rain coming. Is that going to scupper his chances? So it's definitely a big factor. And that's why year on year, you get such big price winners at the festival. You get horses that people forget about almost because they have a quiet season. They don't like those deep, boggy winter conditions. Come the spring, they get something a little bit different, and you see an entirely different horse. So, yeah, we're just adding more excuses for our terrible tips, really, if anything.
I like that. It's given us all a little bit of cover there. Paddy, that point about the ground, it is important enough. But I suspect that if you're somebody who's going to take all that into consideration, you're going to be making your bet in the last half hour before the race, just to make sure you've got all the available information.
Yeah, you probably will, but it's also like a lot of things you'd probably be looking at price and trying to get ahead of the market. And if you think something's going to shorten up an odds, like try and grab the odds quickly and that kind of stuff. But it's funny racing. It always chuckle away because it's true. We talk about the ground so much in racing. God, we spend all our lives talking about it, and it is really important. But it's like the weather and the ground. It's so bloody Irish, isn't it, the weather? But yeah, I think you're right. The closer you get to the off time, the more information you have, and you can just see how markets are developing. And Gina said it right. Cheltenham is obviously, we call it the Olympics of racing or whatever you want to call it. But there's like most horses are there because they're good enough to be. Well, they're good enough to be there. So you do forget about some top quality horses sometimes. And that's often the problem, because you have your mind made up and then you look down the race and go, oh Jesus, yeah, I remember that one won at Leopardstown. Yeah, that was good. And you start changing your mind then. So my advice would be make up your mind and stick to it.
Yeah, I think that you don't get inside your own head. Gina, can you tell us a little bit about A Plus Tard? I think you've got a family connection there, is that right?
Well, yeah, the Racing Post had me having selected, bought and been entirely responsible for all of his successes a few days ago.
It's in print now.
It's not true. It's not true. Yeah. No, my other half, Alex Elliott, is a bloodstock agent. He actually found this horse in France. And the story was that the original owners who he'd been over there looking for had pulled out of the deal. And I subsequently made a call to Chewby Park stud Richard Thompson, who I'd been doing some work with before, just to see if they were interested, because Alex was really keen on this horse. Now, I was very nervous. I wouldn't make a good bloodstock agent. I was like, this horse better be good, Alex, or I'm not putting my neck on the line for this, because having met Mr. Thompson, I just desperately wanted him to have a good horse. As it turned out, he won at the festival and he's won subsequent grade ones for them. So absolutely delighted with the way it had gone. And I just think he's a brilliant horse. I really fancy his chances for the Gold Cup. He absolutely annihilated the opposition when running in the novices event at this festival 2 years ago. Skipped up the hill as if he joined into the race, 2 furlongs out. He's a really, really assured jumper. Last year in the Ryanair contest, he finished third. And a lot of people probably said, well, he just maybe not as good as we thought. I just didn't think that was his running at all. He was disappointing that day for whatever reason. He just was never travelling with the same fluency. And what we've seen from him this season, stepped up in trip, because he's contesting the Gold Cup now over the longer trip, has just been brilliant. In the Savills Chase at Christmas at Leopardstown, that's one of the big trials for this. He finished with a real flourish off a strong pace, so real eye-catching performance. And I think he's got a really good chance, albeit he's going up against a horse that's looking to emulate Best Mate with a third win in the race. So he's going to have his work cut out against Albion Photo, but I think he could be the young pretender to step into the spotlight this year.
Yeah, Johnny Ward, you kind of want a Gold Cup horse to have overcome some difficulty at some point in the last couple of years and to show that you're able to get through that.
Yeah, I guess Champ is probably the one that comes to mind a bit to me, because he has had a wind operation, but jumping has been a big problem for him. I would have thought coming into his comeback run in the Game Spirit that he had an awful lot to prove. It's one of these strange things with Nicky Henderson then, who's a little bit unpredictable, apart from the fact that you can safely predict that Cheltenham means almost everything to him, was the fact that he dropped, he didn't run Altior at the weekend. He was going to run him in the Game Spirit, and instead ran Champ, dropping him back to 2 miles. When I don't know if you could say like a horse who didn't win produced an extraordinarily positive performance, but his odds collapsed for the Gold Cup after the race because he dropped back to 2 miles, which obviously put an emphasis on jumping at speed, which is necessary in the Gold Cup because it's an incredible jumping test, the Gold Cup, for a staying race. It's nothing like your average staying race. The fences just keep coming at you, you're turning and so on and so forth. But Champ, who obviously was, we all remember last year the RSA Chase, how much ground he had to make up, and Barry Geraghty essentially just hoping for the best and allowing him to pop the last because his jumping wasn't quite up to scratch last season. He was brilliant at his fences in the Game Spirit, and the fact that he's named after Tony McCoy, owned by JP McManus, I think there's a big story there. I think he's going to be hugely popular in the betting come Friday for the Gold Cup. And, you know, at that stage as well, we'll be thinking Monkfish and Envoi Allen, I think they will have been mightily impressive at that stage. I think we'll be looking forward to one of the Gold Cups of the ages in 2021, particularly if Champ, who will be a third season novice at that stage, happens to win the Gold Cup this year, and I think he's a massive chance.
Yeah, I think, Paddy, that's a fair point, isn't it? When you have a two-time champion defending the crown and as short a price as 5-2, 9-4 at the moment as Album Photo is, then anything that actually beats Album Photo is going to go down in legend, because the fact that you stopped the 3 in a row, and because Album Photo arrives in obviously such good form that it's such a short price. So that race is set up pretty well. And yet, despite that, it seems like it's a little bit under the radar, certainly in the sporting public's interest. I think it's going to only grow as the week goes.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, like Album Photo probably doesn't get the recognition he deserves. And I guess Best Mate maybe didn't either, because they're a very lightly raced. And that seems to be the formula to come back and try and regain or retain your crown. I think that's it's very few horses are sound enough to win, even if they win 2, to come back uninjured the following year as well, to go for 3. But Album Photo, I think actually might be decent odds at about 9-4 or 5-2, like you said. I mean, Best Mate was probably about 8-11 for doing his hat trick, and I know it looks like a strong race in theory this year. I think Album Photo is like done. He's won 2 very different types of Gold Cups, which shows his versatility. He won a fast run one 2 years ago, really impressively, and just about scrambled home in a slowly run one last year. So whatever way the race sets up should be okay for Album Photo. And I think, you know, I'd be like everyone else, been scratching around looking for the dangers to him, because that's what you want to do. You always want to find the up and coming one, the new kid on the block and all that kind of stuff. But then I kind of come back to thinking maybe we're just overcomplicating the thing. Maybe he's been there, done that, so why not do it again?
Yeah. Gina, what do you think?
Yeah, Album Photo, definitely. You've got to respect a horse who's won it twice. That's the thing. It's such a unique test. The speed they go in a Gold Cup, the twists, the turns, he obviously loves that. And more than that, people will look back at his win last year and say, well, we can crab the form. Santini, who finished second, has not had a great season. Lost in Translation was third. He's not had a great season. They went a real slow pace and sprint for home, but he still managed to win it. And the year before, they went a real fast pace and he still managed to win it. So he gets the job done is the crucial thing with Album Photo. And that makes him, you know, a really solid favourite, as Paddy said. But you're always looking for those younger pretenders who are going to come through. For me, that could well be A Plus Tard. Champ, again, could well be that horse. Of the older horses that he's already met, I think probably it's a bit of a stretch. Santini, people have always thought, has more in the tank than he's willing to put out. There was a great comment from his trainer, Nicky Henderson, saying you really have to shovel on the coal, and he's not the kind of ride me in my current state of fitness would want to get on board, because he's constantly having to be kept up to his work and the coal shoveled on and pushed up the hill. But they're opting for headgear with him, which is a tool they sometimes use to sharpen them up, make them a little bit try and light them up a little bit in the race. So that might do the trick for Santini, but I think you're looking at one of those younger horses maybe to put it up to Album Photo, and I'm just hoping that A Plus Tard could fit the bill.
And was the way
that's the thing as well. Santini and Champ are in the same stable, and they're totally different horses. And Gina's mentioning Santini, how, you know, he's so much ability. He's a brilliant record at Cheltenham, and he's slow. He's very slow. He just stays going. But if he's prominent, sort of coming to the second last, he's a massive chance. Whereas Champ showed that he actually has the pace to be very good over 2 miles. 2 completely different horses, both in with each way chances from the same stable.
Is it ridiculous to mention Frodon here, the way that Frodon galloped on in the King George and Stephen's Day? Is it too far away? Is that form kind of pointless when we get to 3 months on, 2.5 months on?
I don't really think he's much of a chance, to be honest, because I think his stamina, as much as it was kind of, you know, there were question marks about his stamina going into King George. King George is a bit of a strange race for me. I think there were a lot of flops in behind. Don't really see it happen for Frodon. I'm interested, Gina, what Frodon winning would do for the sport, because, you know, the Bryony Frost has been in the news for taking some kind of umbrage with the way she's been treated in the weighing room, is my understanding. But for my mind, Bryony's, she's almost like too enthusiastic for my liking. She's so enthusiastic, but I think she's fantastic for racing. And I think if you have Rachel Blackmore win on Honeysuckle on Tuesday, which there's every chance to happen, can you imagine Bryony, after the negative publicity racing's had over the last couple of weeks, Bryony Frost will have racing on the front page on a Saturday, and maybe even the Financial Times. Can you imagine how good that will be for racing?
Yeah, it'd be great. She is, as you say, such a great spokesperson and very uncharacteristic of what we usually get from jockeys and from racing people in general. I guess our modus operandum is to play things down. We've seen it all before. We're very much kind of, set in our ways. But Bryony brings this absolute breath of fresh air in that the media just eat up. She really talks about that connection between horse and rider and kind of brings it alive for the layperson. As you say, it might not be to racing people's tastes or to everyone's tastes, but it really does communicate to a wider audience. And not only that, obviously she's a female jockey. We've seen female jockeys breaking new ground over the last few years. Rachel Blackmore, Bryony herself on winning the Ryanair a couple of years ago on this same horse. So it's a huge story, isn't it? And as you say, would put some of those more negative news stories we've had over recent weeks in the shade, hopefully.
Gina, we've already had Paddy's nap a little bit earlier on in the show. What's your nap? Is it Tritonic by any chance, or is it something else you've got for us?
Yeah, I do really like Tritonic. Napa, the naps are probably the likes of the Monkfish in the RSA. Monkfish, who's just looked an absolute bomb-proof chaser. And you've got Envoy Allen, who I'm a big fan of in the Marsh. There are no secrets with those two. So if we're looking for something, maybe, a slightly bigger price, I really like a horse called Third Time Lucky for Dan Skelton, who goes in the county hurdle. Obviously, this is a handicap, so it's, a harder race potentially to find the winner of, but I really like this horse. He lines up for a team who've been in sparkling form coming into this meeting. They had a 4-timer earlier in the week on the same card at Southall. They won the Imperial Cup on Saturday. They're just in red hot form. They've targeted this race in the last few years. I think they've won it 3 times in the last 5 years. This Third Time Lucky, to me, would have had a chance if he'd run in the Grade 1 Supreme on the day one. So the fact that they're able to run him in a handicap in the county hurdle, he just sort of fluffed his lines at the last time at Musselburgh, or otherwise he could have been coming in off the back of a really good win in a decent trial for this race. So that maybe accounts for him going for this slightly easier race. And I really like his chances, Third Time Lucky in the county hurdle.
Okay, well, that is pretty sound logic. Paddy, is there anything specifically that you're running scared of this week? What would there's a lot of short price Irish favourites.
Yeah, it's just you keep saying, everyone says Asher, they can't all win. Maybe they will, though. Maybe this is the year when they will. But that's the only thing that's a bit dangerous, And to be honest with you, there's no point in running scared. This is Cheltenham. This is what you're in it for. Whether you're a punter or a bookie or whatever, you're in it for this week, and whatever way it goes, it goes. But I think part of me loves when some of the favourites start going in, particularly when you're over there, because the atmosphere is outrageous and stuff like that. And even though it can be expensive, the bookies make enough bloody money during the year. I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think if we get a roll of Irish favourites, you might start getting a few press releases from the bookies getting a little bit twitchy. But I think, let's get a couple of them in the bag and then see what we're made of.
Yeah, all right, good stuff, folks. Great to have you with us this morning. Thanks a million for joining us.
No worries.
My thanks there to Gina and to Paddy, who are going to be with us across the course of the week here, and of course to Johnny Ward, John Duggan and Tom Malone as well. You've been watching the Cheltenham Show on OTB Sports with Paddy Power. Don't feel like a punter, feel like a favourite this Cheltenham. If you missed any of this show, you can catch the full podcast back on the OTB Sports app, and keep an eye too on otbsports.com throughout this week, where the team will be giving their daily picks, and we'll be doing the roundup of how the top tipsters are getting on as well. That's all for today's Cheltenham Show. We're going to be back at 10:30 tomorrow morning with a detailed look ahead to day one, line by line, race by race, card by card, and of course the champion hurdle. See you tomorrow.
The Cheltenham Show on OTB Sports. Don't feel like a punter, feel like a favourite this Cheltenham with Paddy